From the station that made country music famous, 650 AM WSM, this is a Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast. Hey, it's Charlie Matos, and in this episode, we sit down with Grand Ole Opry star Craig Morgan, and so much to talk about. God, family, country, Craig's new memoir, and we would chat about that and a whole lot more on our Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast.
Coffee, Country, and Cody.
I'll be a captain.
I'll be a captain.
Oh, that's easy.
You're Captain Morgan.
Okay, just I want to set the. I have to set the record straight. I was a sergeant, not a captain. But anyway, today I really am Captain Morgan.
Sail away, Captain Morgan. Sail away. Good morning, Craig Morgan. Welcome to Coffee, Country, and Cody, buddy.
Good morning.
Well, last time you and I sat down was at the CMA close-up stage. And Kelly, we were talking about the very thing you're here to talk about this morning, your memoir. This is the story of your life so far. You haven't lived your whole life. So to this date in time, the Craig Morgan story, God, family, and country.
Yeah, kind of odd. You know, I thought a book was something you did like when you finished everything.
Yeah.
And I wasn't finished, but we weren't doing anything else, so it seemed like, okay, let's write a book. There's a pandemic, and we're not working, so sure, I'll write a book.
So when did you do Beyond the Edge? When did you guys film that?
Let's see. I think it aired in March, so it was like a few months prior.
Okay. So
to that.
2021?
Yeah, 2021. We were out of the pandemic. We had already gone back to work. And I started working on the book before that, obviously. Started during the pandemic. But that show, I'm telling you, that I had as much fun doing that. It was so funny. I got to tell you, I think I can say this now. I don't know if the network, I don't know. But if I get in trouble, I'll get in trouble. But so I did a Zoom call during the pandemic. They did a casting call, and my management called and said, "Hey, do you want to do this survival show?" And initially, I said no. And they said, well, let us send you the concept. And they sent me the concept, and I looked at it, and I just loved what it was about. A bunch of celebrities getting together to raise money for charity. And our objective was not to try to get rid of each other. It wasn't trying to beat each other out that way. It was to work together. And even though you competed against each other, every day it was a different team.
Did you know who the celebrities were going to be at that point?
No,
okay.
Didn't have a clue. Went through the audition, and at the end of the interview, and there is, all the directors, the producers, there's probably 12 people, and my management is on the side listening, with their cameras blacked out or whatever, and I was just sitting there talking, and I remember because I was at my place in Florida, and I was like half into it, like half cared about what was going on. It was a pandemic, and I was enjoying the time off, I got to be honest. And they're like, so tell us this, you may have to, find your own food and build your own shelter. How do you feel about that? This was the last question. I said, look, I got to be honest with y'all. This is what I do for a living. I'm a singer, but this is the kind of stuff I teach, and this is a vacation. This would be a vacation. I would look forward to this. It sounds like a vacation to me. And they're like, well, thank you very much. And that was the end of it in Zoom. And management called and said, hey, we'll let you know what they say. And 3 days later, they called and said, hey, they called and they wanted to thank you, but they said they felt like you were overqualified to do this. And I said, hey, it is what it is. No big deal. A short time later, and by short time, I mean about 3 weeks before the show was scheduled to take place, before we were scheduled to go out there, they called and said, hey, we would see if Craig would reconsider, or if he would like to come back on. We know, but we'd like to see if he'd come. So management called, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. I found out after the fact that one of the initial celebrities that they had selected got COVID and couldn't go. And so they called me back and went. Fast forward into this thing, about 3 days into this ordeal, the vice president of CBS flew down, and one of the senior producer, they come over and pulled me aside and said, hey, we want to thank you for coming. When we first casted for this, we didn't think that we thought it would be better for the show if everyone didn't know what they were doing. But now we know that having someone here that knew something about what was going on saved the show. And I'm not saying that, to brag about myself. I'm just saying they recognized that if they had someone been there who didn't know how to start a fire or who didn't know those things, they wouldn't have made it.
My favorite quote from the entire thing, as much fun as we had watching you and Lauren Elena interact with the Opry family connection, was Paulina Porizkova, who said, if not for Craig Morgan, we'd all be dead right now.
You know what? Here's what I say, though. That's not a true statement.
Spot on, though.
Every one of those people, like he said that about me being there, but I would tell you that every one of those people, even had I not been there, they would have stayed as long as they did.
And you were in Panama.
We were in the jungles of Panama.
And that is where, how much time did you spend in the jungles of Panama?
Months. Over a year.
Okay.
Yeah. I literally, in my book, I talk about this story. I made a jump. The day that the 82nd Airborne, some people remember this. A lot of people are too young to remember this. But in 1989, in the invasion, after everything was semi-over, we had Noriega cornered in the cathedral or wherever it was he had staked out. So the war was kind of over, and the 82nd Airborne Division jumped back home, and it was all over the news. You know, they've got him all but captured, and the 82nd Airborne Division is back home, and it's over. The same time that the 82nd Airborne Division landed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, parachuted in, I did a jump up on the Costa Rican border with Special Forces and the CIA agency, a couple agents from there, under the mission that I was told we were going to be pushing rebels south from the Costa Rican border. All of that, so stuff was still going on, and I didn't talk about that for a long time because I just didn't think it was right. That's long enough now. Most of those people are gone, retired, and all the equipment's so obsolete it doesn't matter. But the thing is, that jump took place about less than 80 miles from where we did that. So I knew all about the monkeys. I knew all about the food resources. I knew all that. I knew that there were tarantulas. I knew that there were snakes. I knew all of it. So I was well schooled on our environment. Literally, it was some of the most fun I've had in a long time.
I loved watching you, and I would come in here and do entertainment reports the next day, and I was like, okay, so here's what happened last night. And when we got to the finale, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, this was, first of all, the way that they decided it was putting flags in order, whatever. That didn't fly with me.
You have to remember.
I know.
I got too many head injuries.
Yeah, that wasn't good. But watching you encourage the other team and your own teammates, like, come on, coach, we're doing this. Let's go. And you became an instant leader in a way that you're leading by example, but also just the encouragement that you were showing all of them. I mean, everybody, if they didn't already know you, Craig, they fell in love with you.
Well, I will tell you, every one of those people, I say this all the time. You know, we're all in a world where we have all these defenses and we're in our own environments. And so it's easy for us to be who we are. I mean, we are who we are. I'm not saying that anyone puts on fronts, but we do build up defenses. And sometimes we don't allow ourselves to get outside of those defenses and get to really know someone else. A lot of it's just short encounters too. When you're placed in such a harsh environment like that, and I assimilate it or compare it to the military to some degree, I'm not trying to say that what we did was anything like being in war, but when you're in such a harsh environment, you're stripped of all those defenses. Who you are is right there in 100%. It's the truth. And there's no beauty, there's no money, there's no anything that separates you from that other individual. And you really get to know each other. And you become dependent on each other. It's that old communal feeling. And it's just such a wonderful thing. Every one of those people, and I would venture to tell you that Paulina, for example, she and I in this world, had she and I met at a, let's say, a art gallery opening or something, because it's possible that she could be at one and I could show up at one in New York with her, and she and I probably would not have had a long conversation, because we both have perceived ideas. And I don't care how human you are, you can call it prejudice, you can call it what it is, but we have perceived ideas. We perceive people based on what little we know about them. And I think had we been in a different environment, we probably wouldn't have got to know each other, especially if we'd have talked for a few minutes. A very short conversation between she and I would have been a very short conversation in the end of it. Yeah. We both have a lot of different beliefs. But because of that environment, gosh almighty, to sit down and talk with her, I just think she's a beautiful soul. And it's just some wonderful conversations. Her telling me, I don't believe in God. I don't know what God is. I don't believe it. I said, hey, it's okay. I'm not here to try to convert you or teach you, but I can tell you this: you don't know Him, but He knows you, and He loves you, even though you don't know Him and don't think you love Him. It was just wonderful, beautiful, and we both listened to each other. She didn't push me away when I had that conversation with her. And when she and I talked about food, what we did was we found commonalities, common interests. We both love gardening. We both love a lot of things together. Anyway, a long story. It made us I encountered and created a lot of good friendships.
I'm a Miami Hurricane. Kind of the same with you and Ray Lewis?
Oh,
Yeah.
I just talked to him. We talk every week.
Yeah.
How about that?
Every week. If I don't call him, he'll call me. Y'all, I asked him for a quote on my book. We're talking about the book. So I sent him an advanced copy, and I'll tell you my ignorance. I kept getting these emails about the Ark. And I'm like, the Ark? Why are they calling my book the Ark? It's not the Ark. That's Noah. That's a godly thing. There's nothing godly about Ark. And I finally am like, I Googled Ark. Advanced reader's copy. I know that's dumb. So I sent Ray a copy of the Ark, and I was like, "Hey man, when you finish the book, I need a quote from you." Because he's one of the greatest motivational speakers I have ever met. He and Mike Singletary may be two of the top. In fact, I'd put them above any of these guys that do it full time. It's all they've ever done.
Yeah.
But he instead of Gary LaVox sent me a nice quote. Really simple. Blake's really simple. Great. I can put that on a tweet or a Instagram, anything. Ray Lewis sends me this voicemail. It's 3 minutes long. I kept it.
Oh, good.
And it starts out, Craig Morgan. Great American. I mean, it's as if he's speaking.
He's preaching.
He's preaching. Every time the man talked, he was preaching. And Mike was the same way. Mike didn't talk a lot, but when Mike was like, what was that old commercial, when they speak, everybody listens?
Oh, E.F. Hutton.
E.F. Hutton, yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Singletary was the E.F. Hutton of the group. I mean, he wouldn't say a lot, but when he did, everybody went.
What's he say?
And I can't hear, so I'm always like, stretching over there.
What would you have given to have had Blake Shelton crawling through the mud in the jungle?
Oh, God. It wouldn't have lasted long. He wouldn't have made it as far as Meta. Look, I've hunted with him for years, and he's the only guy I've ever seen drink a beer in a deer stand. I'm talking about a climber. How did you get that beer up here?
Oh, the story, the memoir of Craig Morgan, God, Family, Country. Here's the musical version. We'll continue on 6:50 a.m. WSM. He's headed to the Grand Ole Opry this weekend. It's been his home for a lot of years now, since John Conley invited him a few years back. Craig Morgan from the CD, I Love It.
He grew up in a time when a third grade education was all the school you needed to work the family farm. He'd take time off on Sunday, him and all his family, warm a pew.
Coffee, country, and Cody.
Just let me alone, 'cause I was almost home. I said, oh man, you're gonna freeze to death. Let me drive you to the mission. He said, boy, if you left me alone, right now I'd be fishing.
Jelly Roll with Craig Morgan.
Yeah.
That was Craig on the left, by the way, if you were watching on Circle Television.
Here again, an odd pairing.
But I was there the night he made his debut and told the story that led to you duetting with him on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. Recount for the audience who may not know that story.
Yes, so I was not there, but I seen it. Someone called me and goes, bro, you got to go on YouTube or whatever. You got to pull this up where Jelly Roll, this new artist, is on the Opry talking about you and your song. And I'm like, well, so I immediately get on my phone and YouTube it. And there he is telling the story. He's saying that, first of all, when he was in jail, the song, he remembered listening to that song and thinking, someday I want to sing music like this. I want to be able to inspire people. And he tells this great story. But for me, what hammered me watching this video, first of all, I'm looking at this guy going, what is this rock star doing on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry? I thought he was a rock singer, the way he looked, and he is to some degree. He really is. But then he starts talking, And he's telling his story, and he looks out in the audience, and he said, I remember sitting in that pew right there, 3 back, where the gentleman in the red hat is sitting. And I remember Craig Morgan up here singing Almost Home. And I mean, I was all but in tears. I mean, you know, it's easy to do what we do, and I don't want to say we take for granted the impact that it has, because I don't think any of us do. But you're busy, and it's not until you see that and hear that you go, wow, man, what a blessing. What a blessing that God has used me and that I get to be a part of that. And then I met him, and you know, first of all, it just made me feel like, you know, very awkward special, because I'm just not that guy. But he was just so kind, and his heart's bigger than he is, and he's a big boy. He's a big boy. But I just immediately, like I said, I felt like all those barriers and all the preconceived ideas based on judging that book by its cover, it was gone. And I just fell in love with him. And that night I said, I want to surprise him. He was going to be there as well, and bring him out. And I hand wrote the lyrics to Almost Home and signed it, and brought him out and had him sing it with me. It was just everybody says it was a special moment for him. They don't understand. That moment was for me. That was my special moment. It was very special for me.
Yeah. And when you see something like that, you know that it hit him and changed his whole life. I mean, truly, if he's sitting in jail and he's hearing this and he knows, I need to change the direction that I'm going, and then to see him be on the stage of the Opry and make his debut, that's just something special.
It was very special, and it is every time I get to talk to him.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Your memoir is doing so well. It's God, Family, and Country. We heard the song a little earlier. Let's start with word 1 of the title, God.
Easy.
Your spiritual life. Growing up, did you go to church as a kid growing up? Were you church folks? And,
oh, yeah,
and
100%.
Bring that to where you are in your spiritual walk now.
I think everybody in their spiritual walk, it's every day is a growth. Every day especially if you're trying, and if you're trying, you're not going to help but grow. And I say that about anything you do. Any form of success is gained through growth, and a lot of times that growth comes at heartache and hardship. I started out as a kid going to church. My mother and dad both were great singers. And I remember the funny thing is, my mom's name is Betty. You know, I had that song, Sweet Miss Betty likes to sing off key.
Oh, yeah.
If my mom was alive, she'd slap me because she was never off key. But yes, I grew up in it, and I've always had a relationship with God. I've recently, as in the last been 4 years now, I've converted to Catholicism, just another form of Christianity, the first form of Christianity, and it's only through studying, in-depth studies. Karen is a major in religion, and she started that process. In fact, she would come home after going through some various studies in RCIA program, and she would tell me stuff, and I'd be like, man, are we gonna get divorced over this stuff? Are you getting into some cult or something? I had no idea, so I started researching myself, and my growth spiritually it's 100-fold where I was, and it's all because of education. We have to educate ourselves on the history of our faith. And when you do that, you can't help but want to know more and want to be better. I mean, ultimately, the Christian, the term means to be Christ-like. And that's what we attempt to be. Now, having said that, I fail miserably often. But I'm trying every day.
The next word is family. And that immediately takes us to the death of your son, Jerry. And was that a turning point in that spiritual walk?
I'd like to think not, but it may have been. It definitely added to the time spent spiritually.
Okay,
meditation, call it what you want, but prayer. I took off. I quit for a while, took some time off, and spent a lot of time in prayer. And so I think anytime we're in prayer, we're again growing, we're learning. Studied the Word more, and continued my studies in my faith, and. But I'll also tell you, that's also a very difficult time for people of faith, because if you're not careful, you'll allow yourself to say, why me, God? And I fought that. I have never sat down and said, why me, God, to this day. And I refuse to, because I refuse to bow to the devil to let him think for one moment that I don't trust God. And I think I would be questioning him. And I'm not to say that's not to say that it's not okay to question God. I think it's okay for you to ask God questions and ask him. I'm not saying that people that say, why me, God, or why is this happening? I don't think that's wrong. I just don't want to do that.
For people who are watching or listening, parents, couples, how in the world did you and Karen make it through that time?
Day to day. I had a friend tell me a long time ago, the day Jerry went missing, they came that night. The next morning, I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know I can't even think. He said, listen, right now, you just need to breathe. Literally breathe, because you will stop breathing. And he was right. I would find myself holding my breath, and not in anger, just in frustration and lack of ability to comprehend what to do. He said, then you just need to take it second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. He said, one day, who knows when, but one day you're going to wake up and you will have thought about your son and you will have missed him the same amount that you have thought about and missed your other children. They're just not there. They had lost a child too. So I took what he said and I've held on to that, and that's true. And I'm waiting for that day to come. But I have confidence in his faith, and I'm confident. I'm pretty sure I know where he's at. I mean, ultimately, I think only God really knows that. But if he wasn't there, his mama's prayed him in. Every
Mamas
day.
can do that.
They can do
it's
that.
It's a little tougher for daddies, but
Yes,
mamas can get it done. How to Make a Man. Craig Morgan, what a man, on 650 AM WSM, and headed to the Grand Ole Opry this weekend.
Thanks for listening to our Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast. Our program director at WSM Radio is J. Patrick Tittle. Our digital producer is Haley Hall. Marketing and promotions director is Amanda Cannon. And I'm Charlie Matos. If you like what you've heard, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review on iTunes. It really does help new people find the show.